Hello, everyone. How are you doing on this very snowy Monday? If you are in the Northeast or even maybe as far south as us in DC, we're getting some snow too. Welcome to our Supervisors in Government Community of Practice. I'm Emily Jarvis, and I am filling in for your wonderful host, Leah Anderson, today. She is out dealing with some power outages in Rhode Island with the storm that's coming through. So I will be filling in for you all today. And we are talking about improving team motivation. It is going to be a very important topic. But before we get into all of that greatness, and while you all are streaming in, I want to know it's cold outside right now here in DC. So, what soup or stew from your background or region or your childhood, what do you love? I know that I myself am a chili girl, but not a spicy chili girl. I wish I could say I liked spicy chili, but I just can't handle it. Melissa probably can. She said chili. Chili with cinnamon rolls? I have questions and I need answers. But that sounds amazing and delicious. And we need recipes too. So if you've got a good recipe in there, by all means, throw it into the chat as well. While you are all telling us about your soup or stew or porridge or whatever you want to throw in there, just a few housekeeping items. First things first, we will be sending you the recording of this session tomorrow, so you can always check your inboxes for it. Again, keep the chat as active as you possibly can because the more questions you have, the better off we are all going to be. So put your questions in early and often. If you want to send a private question, you can also utilize that Q&A tab. And if you have any technical issues today, you can also use that Q&A tab and my wonderful colleague Maddie will get you all sorted out. All right. I'm seeing a lot of beef stew, tomato and rice, ground beef, and vegetable. Oh, yum. I think these are great. Now I'm starving. I need to go have a snack or some stew, I guess.
Yeah.
Uh,
Sarah even said menudo. That was mine. I put in menudo. That's fantastic.
I love it. I love it. Just a couple other reminders. Be sure to join the LinkedIn group if you haven't already. All right. I want to introduce you to our speaker today. Joining us is Javier Lopez, who's the executive coach and organizational consultant at the Gov Geek. Javier, thanks so much for joining us. And tell me, what was your soup again? What did you pick?
Oh my gosh, I had to go with menudo. Yeah, it's just such an amazing cure-all, an amazing thing. All of its ingredients aren't necessarily as appetizing for a lot of folks, but I will tell you, it is like a cure-all. It cures everything.
Oh, I love that. My mom used to make the Italian penicillin, which I think is like in the same kind of healing vibes. Obviously a different type of dish, but same sentiment, I guess I would say.
It sounds like
Um,
they're all made with love, so it all works.
exactly. Boston clam chowder,
Amazing.
delicious. All right. Well, let's go ahead and get into it because improving team motivation, this can be something that can be a real stumbling block for organizations if they start going down a negative atmosphere where motivation can really stagnate or perhaps even dip. So, with that in mind, what are our warning signs, Javier? What are the first things you start to notice when your team's motivation starts to dip a little bit?
Oh, absolutely. So this is definitely have to be disengagement.
Mm.
Where individuals could have been a little bit more involved, excited, more willing to take on certain things, willing to ask questions. If there's a lot of concern on their ability to do that, more than likely you're going to get some motivational concerns as well. But also, to be honest, for ourselves, there's this great concept. Mihail Csikszentmihalyi had a book called Flow that I think is really germane to our conversation today. It's basically our ability to manage our challenges with our skill levels. And sometimes, if we're not feeling that vibe, that excitement about what we're doing, focused in on whatever the work is, if we've all of a sudden been knocked out of that, yeah, that can be bad for motivation for ourselves and for others.
Yeah. I know myself personally, I tend to be a little bit type A. And so I need, all of my ducks in a row. And I start to notice that if I'm not creating my to-do list, if I'm not kind of starting every day with an action plan, my motivation goes way down. So that what you're talking about here makes perfect sense from an organizational standpoint, but for me, from a personal standpoint, I can definitely see some of those warning signs that you're talking about here. And if anyone in the chat wants to throw in your signs that you see when maybe some of your team's motivation starts to drop, feel free. Or of course, you can always ask us questions in the Q&A or the chat as well. All right, lack of excitement, changes in attitude, increased absences. Ooh, that's a
Yeah,
good
big
one.
time. Absolutely.
Uh, what do
I
we
mean,
have?
what happens when, unfortunately, an individual is really excited, they want to show up, they stay a little bit later, they get there earlier, and then all of a sudden they don't want to be there. And there's a lot of absences, issues, and concerns just arising that are coincidental. But really, those are all indicators. I think really, if you were to kind of lay them all out and plot them on a graph, you could say, well, here's where we see motivation and where it becomes to dip off when these patterns begin to emerge. Again, the
Mhm.
absenteeism, things of that sort as well.
Oh,
Yeah, that was an
yeah.
excellent point.
Oh, yeah. Look at this. Low productivity, low accountability. Oh, that's deep. Changes in communication when they close their door and take naps. Oh my goodness, Joanna, that is aggressive. Take
Sometimes we just get so burned out. We need that moment. I will say
Yeah.
what I used to do is in my lunch break, I would go downstairs to my car and just like take a nap, just a quick 30 minutes to help me kind of like refocus and
Yeah.
recenter. Very helpful. But yeah, if we're feeling like that lack of energy, if we're not really feeling physically well as a result of the work that we're doing or the environment that we're in, these are bigger signs and indicators that we really need to recognize rather than just say, well, I need another cup of coffee and maybe another Red Bull to get me through the day. When those patterns begin to pile up, then that's when we have an issue.
Makes a whole lot of sense. All right. So, obviously, to counteract some of these things, you need to know your employees. So, how do you learn what motivates each person on your team? Or how do you look at maybe load capacity? Someone's really busy, maybe someone has a little bit more bandwidth. How do you look at that?
Yeah, well, I think one of the most important things up front is to already have the trusting relationship to learn what motivates all of us, not just when everyone is busy. It's kind of like this concept: the best time to grow a tree or plant a tree is 30 years ago. The second best time is today. If you have that established already, you know what the motivations are before busyness really comes into play. So I think that's about creating spaces for trust building conversations. Another fun concept is the Johari window, where we allow ourselves the space to welcome feedback as well as create the vulnerability in ourselves to disclose to others what challenges we're experiencing. Then we get to see, well, what is motivating for us? What are the challenges? And as leaders, if we go first, we unconsciously give the space for others to follow into that safe space that we created. So, understanding that conversation and building a partnership. I'd also mention it's important to have a self-awareness of our values. Like, what are the things that really drive us? Emily, I love the idea where you mentioned about your task lists, a way to kind of get yourself structured and organized to be able to work. That might be based on a larger value that you have. Dependability, accountability, accomplishment, etc. And when you feel perhaps that that is not in line with what you're experiencing, that can really throw us all off. So if we know what motivates us up front by like what we value and we care about, then we can have honest conversations like, this is what I need more of, this is what I need less of. And again, if we have that safe space, then as supervisors and managers and leaders, we can help to make the changes in an actionable way to really help people. As fun as it is to pretend to be like Professor Xavier and the X-Men to like just go like this and read everyone's thoughts, I
Yeah.
know what motivates these people. And this is exactly what I mean. We don't really have that power. I don't, maybe Maddie does. She seems to be very, very fluent in all of her
Yes,
capabilities here.
she
But for
is.
the rest of us, it's good to just have these conversations up front.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned Professor Xavier. Do you want to know a fun fact about Maddie, who is our production person on today's training? Her middle name is Storm. So she's like already in the X-Men universe. It's
That
truly
is so
crazy.
cool.
I know. I know. She's probably thrilled that we're sharing these, these stories about her. All right. So there's two comments here in the chat that I want to reference and get your input on, Javier. The first is Johanna's, and she said, I tell my people to see the abyss and take two steps back. They're the most important person. And I love that perspective because you're there kind of advocating for your team and kind of understanding where their challenges are. But sometimes the challenges are in a place where some of the elements are outside of your control. So Sarah put in here, due to losing a third of our team due to the mandated February cuts, I had to work till 9 p.m. this past Friday. In order to do this, I took a 20-minute nap in the car in the parking lot, all completely legal, and it gave me the energy to then work till 9, meeting more emergency deadlines. I think there is some reality here that sometimes the work is a lot, and that potentially the burnout could be really felt by some folks. So, how do you see motivation perhaps in a world where you're doing more than perhaps you've ever done before?
Well, honestly, I want to really applaud Johanna and Sarah for their comments there. The theme that I'm hearing between them is recognizing where the challenges are and then taking actionable steps to address where those challenges are. The abyss is there, but if we take two steps back, we can manage it. If Sarah is able to recognize that there's these longer periods of time, but then to create the space to take that 20-minute nap, that's where we see a little bit of the control. So the motivation, if we are still motivated by the activity, the work, the desire to make a difference for the American people, maybe the bigger idea or concept is how can we cultivate that motivation that drives us while also ensuring that we're taking care of ourselves and others as well. Because we can't just say, here's a rousing speech and everyone automatically is motivated.
Yeah,
Or, by gosh, I need to get the rent payment done and everything. So I am all of a sudden mystically motivated by everything. It's deeper than that. As human beings who are very strongly capable and public servants who care about others, we need to really nurture that spark and take care of each other as well, rather than just being isolated. We need to support one another.
for sure. All right. So I think one of the things here that I want to spend a little bit of time on is the words and the feedback and the choices you can make to help support your team. Because I think in a perfect world, perhaps we could offer leave, or perhaps we could offer raises or bonuses for going the extra mile to kind of keep your team motivated. But especially in government work, that isn't always a possibility. And in most cases, it's not. So, words of affirmation and recognition, feedback becomes critically more important. So, what feedback or recognition have you seen make the biggest difference for your teams?
Well, I mean, of course, saying thank you for your service, to be there to support others, all of that is important. I have a fun little sticker here where 59 minutes are hereby authorized. These little things,
Yeah,
recognizing saying those 59 minutes as words of encouragement and support and helping others is, of course, important. But bigger than that, I would say honestly, it's the platinum rule. So the golden rule is we treat others the way that we would like to be treated. But the platinum rule is to treat others the way that they would like to be treated. So the feedback, like what's important for them? What do they care about? Where are we recognizing where they were vulnerable earlier and have striven to actually have an accomplishment? How do we recognize and see the hard work that they are doing? When we have those sorts of conversations, it's really important. Um, Another fun thing that I'll say also in terms of feedback from my personal experience, I had a supervisor for years who we had a code word when I needed like a timeout, I needed an issue or a concern resolved, and I would say kryptonite. And that kind of man, like, all right, pencils down, let's resolve the issue, let's understand what's going on here. And when we can give feedback in a way that not just like, hey, pep talk, and now you go out and you do your job, when we can kind of have that vulnerability to say, I have a challenge, and then feel supportive, that's very helpful and important.
Yeah. And I think that gets to one of there's a bunch of stuff in the chat that I want to get to in a second, but I think sometimes people think of recognition as leaning perhaps sometimes towards that toxic positivity, right? That you're just like rah rah all the time and that's what's going to motivate you. And I think sometimes you need that vulnerability and that realness in that space to be able to come back and say, we understand that things are not going in a way that perhaps we ideally would want them to go. And here is what I appreciate about this moment and what we're doing. Because I think sometimes that rah rah stuff, and this is from a former cheerleader, can kind of go the wrong way here.
It really can. Yeah. When things aren't authentic, when they're disingenuous, when we feel as individuals like perhaps another person is taking advantage of us, trying to manipulate, that only goes so far in the relationships. But
Mhm.
when we're talking about some of the bigger budget cuts that government has experienced, the staffing shortages that we have, it's not that sort of quick word or speech that's going to really make the thing happen. There's really that connection that needs to be established up front to really make it work. I am loving all of these comments here, by the way, also. So earlier on, the idea about, look, where Becky had mentioned that there was
Mhm.
an individual who actually likes stickers. Hey, if that's what works and that's a connection, that's an establishment, that's how we know how to show up to help each other. Also,
Yeah.
kudos for that person and disclose that, like, this is what works for me.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah. All right. So also in the chat, I want to get to two things. The first is we've been talking about kind of leveling down, motivating your team, and the chat is bumping right now, so it has escaped me slightly who said it, but kudos to you for saying it. Someone said, "How do we remotivate ourselves?" Because as leaders, we also need motivation. So, what advice do you have for, let's say, that self-motivation or perhaps motivating a peer? Because it doesn't always have to be top down.
Yeah, so let me share some balloons
Oh, apparently,
for
hi.
that concept. Yeah, because we need to be a part of everything as well. It's not like where we are just giving as supervisors all of the time. Eventually, our tank gets drained as well. So if we see for ourselves how we are involved and how we're connected with others, um, what's cool about that is that it helps us to see how other people need to help raise their own levels as well. How can we support one another as a larger team rather than just feeling like we are giving and giving? I think a large thing about motivation is reconnecting with the purpose of why we experience what we do, where we are, where we find the joy. And also monitoring and creating a degree of self-awareness around some of the challenges that we experience, as well as some of the joys. Sometimes there might be a way where we can get lost in enjoyment of the work, and it could be the simplest of things. Let's capitalize on that. Fantastic. If we have conversations with our colleagues, where do you find the most profound moments of joy in the work that you're doing, or even just the simplest passing moments of joy? And then build tasks, activities, and culture around those areas. Before you know it, our tank gets filled, everyone else's tank, and we're supporting one another. And that helps to drive culture and eventually then drive performance.
That makes a whole lot of sense. Lindsay in here said, grounding myself in the actual mission and the big picture helps you recenter. I love that. Positive consequences reinforces positive behavior. I think those are also kind of great pieces of advice as well. So I really appreciate that. Okay, I'm just going through to make sure I haven't missed.
Yeah, Emily, isn't there like so much great like discussion here in the chat?
It
Y'all are
is.
amazing.
It is. And one of my strengths is not reading and thinking at the same time. So as all these comments come in, we are going through them. All right. So this kind of gets into what we were talking about. And in her question, it was Libby who threw out that question about managers. So shout out to you, Libby. She mentioned in there that she's worried about potentially burning herself out. And I think our next question here kind of gets into that because we know that there are going to be eras of more high pressure times than others. And as folks have mentioned in the chat, we are seeing staffing reductions and changes that are kind of creating even more challenging times for some folks. I know I'm married to an accountant, so tax time is always a particularly fun time in our household. So when you have people productive bursts in these high pressure periods, what are some ways that you can, let's say, release some of the pressure so that you don't burn out?
Well, I think knowing when the high pressure periods are coming, to plan ahead. For instance, you had the great example about tax season. There's a busy season as to when there's going to be more work, greater requirements in terms of time that you need to invest in the job, more stressful conversations with clients and colleagues and such, so we can manage around that. I think that that is something relatively understood. Possibly the bigger challenge is when we don't know when a high pressure period is going to arrive, or
Yep.
if, my goodness, it's just going to exist for the longest period of time. It's just something that we're involved in. So, to that degree, I would say the idea is to help us recognize who we are as we experience some of the concerns. Again, I mentioned self-awareness earlier, but do we have physical manifestations of some of the burnout? Like, is our
Hmm.
tongue being pressed against the roof of our mouths? Do we feel
Hmm.
tense? Do we have on our smart watches our heart rate kind of going off the chart? Are there bigger issues or concerns for how others perhaps may see us and how we show up outside of work? Are our personal relationships being strained by some of this as well? So that is, I think, one of the more important things is to recognize what the burnout is. The other thing is to say, well, what is it about this high pressure that is causing me to feel this way? And when we recognize the challenges, then we get to ask ourselves a deeper question. What skill set should I be developing to manage what is my personal trigger? It might be the work, it might be the people that we are working with, the context or the environment that we are in. And then we can create individual strategies to address those triggers in a way that's meaningful for us, as opposed to just having like blanket statements. I come home and I have a nice bath and I put on some nice music and a candle and I allow myself to relax and de-stress for a bit. That
Yeah.
might be working for some people, but not others.
Hmm.
Other people, they can say, I go to a rage room and they let me like throw glass bottles at the wall and things. I mean, what are the areas that are really important for us? And of course, I'm sure you're going to hear this a whole lot when it comes to burnout, where people say diet, exercise, nutrition, connecting well enough with others, having a strong established network of peers. I like to think of it as a Jedi council. Where essentially we have our colleagues and peers there to support ourselves, where we can lean on them, they can lean on us. Again, the bigger thing about being connected with others in a way that is meaningful for us as well as meaningful for them, because as public servants, we're not in it alone.
Yeah. I agree with you, and it did make me chuckle when you said a bath because I have a 3-year-old, and I don't think a bath would be relaxing at all for me at this exact time. I think he'd be throwing toys at me as he came in, but maybe a rage room is like up my alley. I'll have to investigate. But Anne threw
Balance of
some.
all of the above. Yeah. Who
True, 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 true. Anne threw in here, she said, give yourself the grace grace you would give to your staff. And I love that because I think so often we are our own harshest critic. So to give yourself that grace that look at you and fireworks and everything over there. I think that is so incredibly important. And it you might not necessarily think of it as a first step, although you should when you're talking about avoiding burnout. But I think that's so very essential.
Oh, absolutely. There's the assumption sometimes about us being promoted into roles of being managers and supervisors that we know how to manage all of that. We may know the technical, but we can also recognize that maybe there's growth points for ourselves in how we manage the relationships, the stress, the workloads, and others, and give ourselves the space to recognize that we're not there yet, but we're growing to that point. This might be the first time that we're experiencing this as well. So we can grow through what we experience in our lives.
I think Anne appreciated the fireworks.
Yeah, there you go, Ann.
There we go. All right, we are rapidly running out of time here, but I want to do a couple final questions for you, Javier. So we'll do these in rapid fire format. And the first one is I think sometimes I know I'm speaking for myself here. When I think about trying to be more productive or keeping folks on my team motivated, it can feel like a mountain that I'm trying to climb. And as someone who's been watching the Olympics religiously for the last couple of weeks, I know that people actually climb mountains. So crazy, crazy stuff happening over there. What is a bite of the apple or one smaller thing that you could do differently to keep engagement from slipping? If there's one kind of core piece of advice you might have.
Honestly, it's vulnerability
Mm,
for my book. Like honestly connecting well enough with others, because again, we go first to give other people the permission to follow into what we create. Vulnerability could be like, I'm a little stressed and concerned that this is where we are. I'm feeling a challenge that I'm not able to meet the task of where we are. I want to help support you, and I'm trying to, but I don't know if what I'm doing is effective or supportive for you. And then inviting some of the engagement and discussion. What are your thoughts on this? What's your feedback on that? How would you like to see things? Because when we have others who feel like they're involved, as opposed to everything is just happening to them, they feel a
mm.
lot more helpful and engaged. And that really brings up motivation. When they can see their work and their suggestions in what their supervisor is doing, what their boss is doing, knowing that they're able to listen to them, be supported, and want to implement on behalf of and in partnership with. Those are amazing things. But it starts with that point of vulnerability, as opposed to like, I'm the boss and I have to have all of the answers and everything has to be right and everyone has to do what I say because I am the boss. That's really going to push motivation down.
Yeah. And Pam's exactly right with what you're talking about. It becomes a we problem instead of a you problem. And I know I feel significantly stronger when we're all working kind of in the same direction versus me trying to solve the problem on my own. So that is great advice. And you're absolutely right. It does start with kind of being vulnerable and telling people where you're at, which sometimes is easier said than done. But I think you're exactly right. All right, Javier, we've got over 100 people on here right now. And so I want to give you a chance to give some closing thoughts here. Obviously, our overarching theme of today's session is around motivation, whether it is through your team or you personally. What would you like to leave our attendees kind of thinking about as they
Uh,
log off today?
I appreciate that question. Thank you again so much for the opportunity for GovLoop for doing all of the work that you are doing. Just a huge impact that you're having on public service. The thought that I have is a quotation that I don't know to whom to attribute it, but a colleague had told me years ago. When the power of your dreams becomes greater than the gravity of your reality, you'll begin to fly. So when you think about, well, what is important to me? What do I care about? What's helpful for me? And you create and design a life around that, you can soar to heights that you had never done before. And when you're partnering with and supporting others to do the same, all of us have a chance to serve the public in a way that we have never been able to do so. We can be the catalyst for ourselves and for others, and together we can continue to soar.
Oh, I love that. That is so beautiful. And those are some wise words to end us on. So, whoever said them, and then for you repeating them, thank you so much, Javier. I really appreciate you spending time with us today.
Absolutely. I have no authority to say this whatsoever, but 59 minutes, if y'all need it.
I
Again,
love
thank you everyone for your service.
Definitely. All right, just a few quick reminders before we all let you go. We will be back here next month on March 30th talking about active listening tips. This is something that I think we can all get a little bit better. We'll say 1% better at every day. So we'll be talking active listening tips for supervisors on March 30th at 4 p.m. But in the meantime, of course, you can check out our monthly newsletter, join the LinkedIn group, and of course, if you want to be one of our speakers, one of our experts, we want to hear from you. So just send us an email and we will, of course, get in contact. But thank you all so much for spending your time with us today. And if you're in the Northeast and you're experiencing this weather, we hope you're staying safe. So I will talk to you all soon and have a great rest of your Monday. Bye, everybody.